And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to another victorious edition of Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After Rutgers. Last night in the night game, the evening game, the late game, Indiana goes on to defeat Rutgers 84-74, taking the record to 11-3 on the season, 2-1 in the Big Ten. All that much closer to a complete game by IU on this one. Started off a little concerning moment with Malik going down, holding his knee, never a good thing. Little MVP moment there from Luke Goody. I don't know if you caught that, but steps in front of the camera as the camera's aiming at that, kind of being the good teammate, shielding him away while he's having that moment. But he would eventually kind of get up and walk off on his own, but went right into the locker room where he spent most of the night. He did come out at one point, had ice pack sitting on that knee. Not many comments other than the standard what you'll hear when players get injured of we'll see and we'll evaluate him when we have time, that kind of thing from the coaching staff after the game. But as they always say, it's next man up, and Ballo came in likely from a continued disciplinary benching from the starting lineup in this game, but came in and played, pardon my French, his ass off in this one. With Harper out for Rutgers, it was all going to fall, obviously, to Ace Bailey with this kind of short roster, I would say, for Rutgers as far as talent to win this game for them. And while he did get an amazing 39 points, some inspiring D from Anthony Leal kind of set the tone on that, slowed him down, made every shot difficult for him, even though he still amazingly made some of those. Couple that with probably one of the best games we have seen from Rice, and IU finally knocking the lid off the three-point basket as well, and as well doing a great job winning the rebounding game. There was a little bit of a lull in the second half that made it closer than it should be, and along with Rutgers kind of playing that prolonged fouling game at the end of the game, kind of around the 2:30 mark on, allowed it to get a little bit closer than it probably should have been or could have been for the metrics, but a more complete game and a lot of good things to talk about in this one. So thank you for being with us. I'm your host, Chad Schwartzkopf. Back here with me after a little bit of a break in some of the tougher games is Martha, the mop lady. Martha, tell me what you thought about this one.
I think the stage had been set, right? I think when you knew the holiday games, the non-conference games, the easy slate, if you will, portion of the schedule, as well as any sort of quad one opportunities we had, were kind of in the rearview mirror, with Indiana challengingly taking care of business against some of those non-conference opponents, and then not really having a whole lot of luck with down in Atlantis or with those quad one opportunities. So the stage had been set for better, for worse. And I think in Indiana's case, kind of for worse, with no quad one wins going into the conference portion of the season. So it's a slippery slope, right? There's no room for error. You've got to hold court at home. And then you've got to find some opportunities against quad one teams, both at home and find some opportunities on the road. And so this was a game that Indiana had to have, with or without Dylan Harper. Rutgers is not a great team, 8-5, I think, coming in. Obviously, they have two NBA lottery type talents. And we also know the success that Rutgers has had against Indiana. They've had Mike Woodson's number. And most of it's been on the defensive end. This Rutgers team is a lot different than the Rutgers teams of the last few years. They're not, I think they were 96th in adjusted defense. So when you found out late in the evening that Dylan Harper wasn't a go, this was a game, obviously before the game, it was a game Indiana had, but it was an absolute must win. And it was quite honestly a game that Indiana should win by double digits. They found a way to do that. There were some bumps in the first half, right? Ace Bailey was Ace Bailey. He was the best player on the court, but I think the beauty came kind of at Indiana's expense a little bit with Renew going down, and even when you look back to Ballo missing a game, right? They were forced to play a lineup that wasn't a traditional Mike Woodson lineup. It was a little bit smaller, and I think that created opportunities for Indiana. I think The 3-point shooting was a lot better. Ballo was a little bit more from a defensive standpoint, and even offensively down low, provided that presence that Indiana needed, and it allowed the guards to, finally make some 3-point shots. So it was a good performance. And I hope, not knowing what Renew's status is as we move forward, I feel like it might give Indiana an opportunity to, do some different things with their lineup, right? Some things that maybe we've been as fans asking for a little bit. And again, I don't love that that's at Malik Renew's potential expense, but I think it also could give Indiana the best chance to pick up some of these wins it needs to. So it was a good first step. I like how aggressive they were on the offensive rebounding end. I think that's where a ton of second chance points, which is awesome to see. And in a team where sometimes we're asking for more effort, I think you saw a little bit of that last night. So a lot of positives.
Yeah, it's definitely the how you want to start the conference schedule. It could have been uglier. You definitely think about setting a tone, setting some momentum and everything, and this is about as ideal as you could ask for, especially with what we've seen so far this year with this team. You look at a team in some of the non-conference games and what we've seen so far, that defense has been kind of one of the things that we've struggled with and we've been aggravated with, and this sets the good tone defensively. We've had a team where we've wanted them to shoot more threes and make more threes in games, and they've had some times where they haven't shot many at all, and they've had some times where they've shot maybe too many, and some where they've shot enough and it seems like too many just because they're not hitting them. And in this game, that wasn't the case. Everyone that should have taken them took them, and that majority, we'll get to that when we kind of talk about stats and everything, but the things lined up and things were set in a proper trajectory, I should say, for in this game for the conference schedule to start off. So it just feels like a right move in the right direction so far. Obviously, we can get to it as far as IU pessimism, as we like to do, where we can't take a step back now. It can't be the patented IU 2 steps forward, 3 steps back situation. That time will tell. We can't dwell on that now, but at least a step in the right direction. And I think a lot of that, as far as tone setting on the defensive side, happened with Anthony Leal coming off the bench. Really huge in this game. Clear momentum shift defensively. Goody was struggling against him to start the game. He was able to drive on him, get easy shots and everything. It was kind of in that last third of the first half where Leal's defense just really slowed Bailey down. He was just playing good fundamental defense, was forcing him to his left. Obviously, he's a once-in-a-lifetime talent in the sense that he can just make those ridiculous one-footed fadeaway shots. And after playing the type of defense that Leal had on some possessions, and then I will say Goody in the second half, you just tip your hat to a player like that makes a shot like that, because you've done everything you can on him. It's just going to be what it is. But Leal did some impressive things. And as I tweeted out, in the end of the first half, the basketball gods rewarded that effort with a very circus 3-point shot that he made. But in the second half, it continued as well. When he got in there, he played well. Again, I think he really set the tone for Goody and showed him how he needs to defend him. And there was a great moment also, not on Ace Bailey, but where Leal was guarding one of their guards, and he had a free side. They shifted to the opposite end and let this guy go one-on-one against Leal, and he was trying to dribble, drive on him, do everything he could, and he ended up getting frustrated, turned around and put his shoulder down, and Leal drew the charge. So just great effort from Leal. Huge. Speak on having his experience and that kind of player in there for IU.
I read a stat, and we've touched on this, I think, in the past, but when Leal plays 10 plus minutes a game, Indiana's record is their win percentage is pretty high. And I don't know what that correlates to. Obviously, he's a glue type guy. He's been around the program for quite some time. He's a guy that goes out and plays with effort. You can speak to all of that. And I think Indiana made some decent adjustments on Ace Bailey. You could tell he was getting gassed, right? Goody was really struggling with him in the first half, but you saw him as the game went on, you saw him getting doubled and even sometimes triple teamed when he got the ball Rutgers doesn't have a whole lot besides him. They've got some guys that can make some plays, but he and Dylan Harper are their team this year, and I think he was a tough. It was a tough ask. It was a tough guard, and I think Anthony came in and his defense kind of turned into offense a little bit. He played 18 minutes last night, and you're kind of seeing him take some minutes from guys like Carlisle, some guys that are struggling, right? And I think you may continue, especially if Renew's out for a while, you may continue to see that bench shorten up just a little bit. And hopefully we ride with some of those lineups that give us the best chance. But Anthony Leal, he does a great job of just, being patient with his opportunities. And when they come about, he takes full advantage of them. And I think you're right. The basketball gods blessed him. But, getting 5 points, 18 minutes out of Anthony Leal, that's a win on any night.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point there. It's one of those things where if you have Tucker and Carlisle having one of their off nights and not just contributing, not able to score like they would, and I think they really kind of searched for their shots. We can talk deeper about them in a minute, but just buttoning up Leal, I think that's a point where then you can go with extended minutes for Anthony Leal because of the leadership that he brings, because of the expertise that he brings, and there's a calming factor to the team when he's in there. And you could see it as well. There was a moment where he drove to the basket and got underneath the basket with the ball, and any other player, Carlisle or Tucker or anyone else on the team, would have tried to go up with it. But Leal knows he's not going to go up against a 6'8" guy and going to make that shot. And he led it to kicking it out. And I think a made three, that might have been Carlisle's made three in that point, or someone made a shot off of that play. But again, that shows just the basketball IQ, and having someone in there as a senior, super senior, with that experience, with that basketball knowledge is very important, and can be a good thing to have. You don't have to have every single guy out there being one that's going to take a shot in everything. He brings other things that can counteract that type of situation. So great to see from him. Obviously, the other storyline that I kind of touched about in the opening, Ballo getting in there, whatever you can say, whatever you want to, and think whatever you want to about him sitting out in the previous game. But you can't deny that last night, when he finally did get to play, he came in and he really gave 100%. He looked like some of the best physically that he has. He obviously played a lot of minutes, but never felt like he was disengaged or playing possessions off. 32 minutes, had a double-double, 17 points, 7 for 13 from the field. 3 for 9, 12 rebounds. Those 7 offensive rebounds, really kind of the big story one for IU, and his help in contributing to those 34 second chance points that IU was able to get off of that rebounding. But got to have him in there. And obviously we saw that in the previous games or in other games when Ballo hasn't been playing or hasn't been in, where he's not that threat underneath. And when IU's defense has lacked as far as dribble drives and stuff, you've needed Ballo in there to clean things up. That's what IU has had in the past. That's what IU had with TJD. That's what IU had with Ware last year. And that's what Ballo supplies for IU this year. But just thought he was great, walling up on defense, moving his feet when he needed to. His player obviously wanted to drive on him a good amount. Got a little torn up on that a little bit. I think the refs were a little rough in some of those situations in this game, but thought Ballo had a pretty good answer game. Your thoughts on Ballo?
Yeah, so, with the noise coming in to this game, right, and obviously the social media noise, the missing a game, why, how's come, and even leading up to this game, being questionable. It was like, okay, is this one of those 3-game deals? Is this really an injury? What's going on? And for a program that really doesn't have any capacity for extra noise, so to speak, it was nice to kind of flush that, right? I think getting into the game, and again, never love it at the expense of Malik Renew, but obviously when he went down, it forced Indiana to turn to Ballo pretty quickly, right? And he went out there and you didn't see really any signs of injury, and the presence he gave Indiana is what I hate to say it this way, but kind of what Indiana's paying for, right? It just is the deal. It's right. It's why you put that sort of investment in a guy like that. That's the expectation with Omar Ballo. he was all Pac-10 or whatever he was, and Pac-12, and it's the Omar Ballo we need every single night, and there can't be any nights off with that guy, and there's been questions about, is he in shape, is he healthy, all this, that, and the other. He looked the part last night, right? And in a game that Indiana needed him, he stepped up, and hopefully that's laying the slate for for the rest of the conference season, just on the rebounding end, right? Just the second chance opportunities, and his presence down low is so huge. So just a guy that needs to bring that every single night. He should be playing over 30 minutes every single night. So I think this is a good first step, right? And hopefully, it's a good time with, conference home game. The holidays are behind us, and it gets real. It gets real really quick. So it's a good time for him to step up, and hopefully we see it again at Penn State. That's going to be a tough game. I think they play in the Palestra in Philadelphia, so that's going to be a wild environment. So, and we saw what Penn State did to Purdue. So we're going to need him to continue to play that way to give Indiana a chance.
Well, you make a good point there with his conditioning and everything, and I think it's on par for a big man. It's good for a big man. His movement's good. He doesn't tire like you think some guys of his size would, and I think you obviously were a little bit jaded as far as IU fans, just because we've had two bigs in the recent past that get up and down the court a lot quicker than normal bigs would. TJD ran the court like a big should not run the court. And I think Ware as well, just from his length and his lack of weight, his lack of mass that we actually had to put on him when he came to IU, allowed him to get up and down the court a lot quicker than bigs tend to as well. So I think that's a good thing. And to button up, talking about Ballo as well, if you are a player and there is some controversy and you do sit out in this kind of situation and things are questionable, and you want to bury it, you want to just move on from it, this is what you do. You come out the very next game and you play your hardest. You dive on the court when there's loose balls, especially as a big, which is a huge thing. And you play your ass off, and you bury those rumors, those thoughts of what's going on. And we can move on feeling a lot better from whatever that was, because we had a night like this from him. So it was just great to see, and need to continue to have nights like that from him, at least on the rebounding side of the game. The other player I think that had maybe one of his best games of the year, I would at least say, to higher competition, was the leading scorer for IU. That is Miles Rice at 21 points, 6 for 15 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, perfect 8 for 8 from the line, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, just 1 turnover. Looked great, getting into the paint, kicking out to guys, getting his own shot, getting things well for IU on the offensive end of side. Honestly, I think as well, his play in the first half is what led to Rutgers kind of making the adjustment to the zone, because what he was getting, whatever he wanted at a good point of this game. The one big lineup, I think, as well, is what really kind of helped IU and helped Rice in this situation. But a very good game, leadership game, great defense from him. Just what you want to see him repeat in most of the outings for the rest of the season for IU. Give me your thoughts on Rice.
I had a chance to watch him in person on Sunday. Went to the game on Sunday and the Winthrop game, and just his, obviously watching on TV, and just his speed, his quickness, his explosion, and at times, this season, I think it's not been utilized, or it kind of disappears during games, but he is such a difference maker with that speed. And you combine that with the fact that, I think he's shooting 92% from the free throw line. Just a guy you want to get downhill more often, I think, for Indiana, because his explosiveness it's pretty surreal to see in person, and something that Indiana hasn't had on the perimeter in quite some time. So it's nice to see him get back and have a good game like that, especially a conference game. And I think, again, we talked about Ballo, that being kind of the norm for a game for him. I think you need to see more of that from Miles Rice, and just, more of a consistent effort to get him downhill to to the hole. And I think it's going to you saw it create open shots on the perimeter. And thankfully we were able to hit some last night. But that's the type of going 8 for 8 from the line, 21 points. That's the type of game that we need from Miles Rice, and that's the type of games he had last year. But yeah, he and Ballo were just, I think, the two best Indiana players on the court. I think Mbako had a good game too. But yeah, he was good defensively as well. So again, a good. It was nice to have that game leading into what is going to be a pretty challenging stretch for Indiana. So hopefully this helps build some of his confidence, and we see it again at Penn State.
I think another player on IU's roster that's really kind of going into the season. Let me I guess phrase it this way. Going into the season, I really thought, just from seeing things on paper, that kind of really we would have a yin and yang situation between Miles Rice and Carlisle. And I thought that they'd really play off each other well. I thought the 1-2 punch of them in the starting lineup was going to be really good to see, and just they would complement everyone. And I think obviously Carlisle has struggled, but I think really that person who has developed, and we saw it, I think, in this game, to be kind of the yin and yang situation with Rice has been Galloway so far. Galloway in this game had a quiet, to me, 11 points. 4 for 11 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3 with 4 assists. Just, you really kind of needed his leadership out there alongside of Miles Rice. Just when Miles was not able to find openings or situations, he could dish it off to Galloway and he could try. And the off-ball movement those two could do with each other was really great. And I think as well, you really saw that lull that happened in the second half for IU happened when Galloway wasn't in there. It was kind of a 11-4 run for Rutgers in the second half when Galloway was out during that little stretch. So it shows how important he is to have out there. And again, I will argue that those two together are a really good combination for IU. And it'd be interesting to try to track that going further into this season. Give me your thoughts on Galloway's game.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? I think the expectations that came in with Carlisle, I think the hope was, right? I mean, we talked a lot about it. You look back, not last year, the year before, where I think Trey Galloway had his best season coming off the bench as the sixth man. We were kind of hopeful that would be the situation this season, that he would be put more into a position where he would be that energy guy off the bench. Whether we needed to continue momentum or had a slow start, that was his role 2 years ago, and he excelled. He came in and was a difference maker, and obviously he was put into a position where he was kind of our two guard last year, and he's back in that kind of position again this year. I think he's handling it much better because he's got a lot more talent around him this season, and I think fortunately and unfortunately he's had to step into that role a little bit more this season, but he looks more the part. It's everything. It doesn't feel as forced with him. Again, I think a lot of that is because of guys like Miles Rice, his ability to get downhill, stay on the court, get to the hole and find open shooters. And Galloway's had some rough moments, but he's also had more moments of consistency that we're used to from him. And he looks like that fifth year guy. So it's good to see. He's making smart, heady plays. And, I think he hit some outside shots last night, which was nice to see. So yeah, it's what you hope to see from him, maybe in a little bit different role than we kind of assumed or thought. But he's stepping up when he needs to, and that's what a fifth year guy should do. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, 3 for 6 again from the field, and I think it's just because the weight is off his shoulders. I mean, again, last year he had to carry so much load with Xavier Johnson out and injured like he was. There's just so much relying on him, and I think he enjoys having playing that complementary role a lot more, and just stepping up in moments in the game like he can. And yeah, I agree as well. I mean, I was bullish as well, saying that I wanted him as the sixth man for IU and thought that's where he'd excelled, and still possibly could be. I mean, if you had Carlisle humming, that could easily. That's the ideal Indiana, obviously. Is that kind of situation, but that's not where Indiana is and not where all those players are. And maybe that transitions well to say that the bench did kind of struggle in this game. And by bench, I mean Tucker and Carlisle in this. They go 1 for 11 together. I think Carlisle just has continued to trying to find his rhythm. And he's trying to do that by putting up a lot of different shots. He was putting up a lot of long twos, hooking up some threes to try to see some things. And you could just, it's tough. It's tough to see because you could tell he's frustrated. It's not coming as easy this year for him as it has in the past. And that can be tough on a player to try to find that. Hopefully he's getting some major coaching out of Calbert Chaney, maybe lock those two in Cook Hall for a couple of days. And what can he draw out of him? But be great to have that great to have that possibly even in our chamber, sitting there and waiting for that to explode. And that's also kind of what Tucker is for IU. He's that freshman. He's going to have down games like this and going to struggle. And then he's going to have games where he just lights it up for IU. So up and down for those two. And this was a down one, not something that we needed their situation to come in, but just a glaring down game for them. And obviously, like I said, that was the kind of lull in the game when those two and Hatton were in there. Hatton obviously struggled a little bit in this game after a huge game for IU last time, but everyone else stepped up around them. So not going to belabor them too much, but your general thoughts on the bench struggles.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bryson Tucker, he's a freshman. He's a guy that's probably going to have ups and downs this season. You're going to see the flashes of the 5-star guy that he is, and we have seen that, right? And there's going to be games where he looks like a freshman. I think you maybe saw a little bit of the latter last night, and I expect we'll probably get a better version at Penn State. I think the real disappointing player for me has been Cannon Carlisle, and you can go back as far as Atlantis and the mysterious 3-game undisclosed absence, and there's been a lot of discourse around what led to that. The expectations that came in, probably the investment that's involved. He's a Stanford kid, so he's no dummy. And he's a kid that put up 11 points a game at Stanford. So the expectations are there. The ability and talent is obviously there. Just continues to, I think, make boneheaded decisions. That push last night that resulted in a technical. You just mentally, you wonder, is there a tough time adjusting to the pressure of Indiana? I don't know, but obviously, the expectation is much higher for a guy that came in with the track record of what he was able to produce at Stanford, what he was brought in to do at Indiana. He's forced Indiana's hand to kind of make more lineup changes than were expected, whether it's been from his absence or his poor play. Just a guy that, and he hit a 3 last night, but it's just not been enough from a guy that came in to, he's expected to be the 2 guy, the 2 guard for Indiana. And, it's gotten to a point now where, losing his starting spot and, he gets out there and, makes some dumb decisions sometimes. So a lot of season left, right? I mean, a lot of conference season left and a lot of chance for him to kind of turn things around. And, obviously it's kind of the holidays are kind of the halfway point of the season. And hopefully it's time for him to kind of reset and figure some things out, because Indiana could really use him. They could really use some extra presence on the perimeter and a guy that's obviously fully capable. So yeah, while it's been disappointing, last night was disappointing effort from him. Hopefully we can find a way for him to turn around as we move forward.
I guess, I mean, you kind of opened something up there where I'll at least say, closing it out with him, it's at least good to know that he has that in him, that it's there. It's proven. He's done it in the past. It's not like he's a player that we've had in the past with guys in the lineup where we're hoping that they'll make that leap or hoping that they'll be able to change their game and become more of a scorer. I'm maybe speaking too generally or too heavy towards like a CJ Gunn, I would say, maybe last year. We were expecting more of a sophomore leap out of him. We were expecting bigger scoring, and we were hoping to pull that out of him each game. Whereas on Carlisle, we're just going, be what you were kind of thing. And I think it's harder to pull it out of someone when it's not there than it possibly might be to just get someone to get over, be it the yips, the frustrations, whatever it is that Carlisle's going through. It's possibly easier to break through than getting a player to be something that they aren't, or grow into shoes that they can't fit into. So I'm hopeful. Again, I know I say the word hope a lot on this show, but I'm hopeful for him to find it. And I at least know it's there deep down somewhere. And hopefully his coaching staff can find it for him and get it out of him. I think the final two guys that we really haven't brushed up on or talked about in this game helped contribute and is IU's best three-point shooters, and that's Luke Goody. Talked a little bit about it, his defensive side, and McKenzie, haven't really talked about him. He was IU's third leading scorer with 16 points, 5 for 13 from the field, 3 for 7 from the field. Again, those two guys both hitting 3 threes. Goody went 3 for 5, so 6 for, quick math, 12, 50% out of those two. They did miss some wide open ones, so that's still happening. Would like to see them hit down a few more of those, but overall, doing what they needed to do in this game. 7 rebounds as well from McKenzie was great to see. 3 for 4 from the field. Thought he was really engaged on the defensive end a little bit more. There was kind of a little bit of a rough time where he did lose his man. It's going to happen. You're going to have that probably patented moment where he's caught ball watching it. I forgot who it was, but they were defending their player really good, and kind of looked like IU was going to get a defensive stop that possession. And McKenzie just got locked in, not paying attention to his man, backdoor cut, and a basket kind of bailed out Rutgers in that possession. But thought he had some great things. I saw a lot of good shot fakes out of McKenzie in this game that we haven't seen much of. Had a huge step back 3. And by huge, I don't mean like in the sense of him making it or it being at a huge point, but took like a 6-foot step back into the side. I was kind of watching that. That really kind of shocked me how far he stepped back to make that 3. Usually wouldn't expect a guy when he shifts his body that much to be able to knock it down, but he does. And then again, coupling Goody in there as well. Thought he really stepped up in the second half with his defense, really kind of that middle part of the game. With Leal and Luke Goody's defense in the second half was what really slowed down Ace and allowed IU to take the lead that it did. But good contribution from IU's forwards. And honestly, if you remember, there was a moment too where we went full small lineup, and one of those guys was playing the 5. So we had them at the 5 and 4 at one point in the game too for IU. But your thoughts on IU's forwards?
They've been kind of the yin and the yang a little bit. I think what Luke Goody has given us from a leadership and defensive standpoint, McKenzie's given us the points on the offensive end, and watching McKenzie in person, he's a look for his shot first guy, and I think sometimes defensively just looks a little unengaged or a little bit effortless, if you will. Just a guy that. And I think some of it is his personality. I think he's a super laid back guy. He's not an in your face guy, not a loud guy. And I think some of that shows in his body language and the way he plays defense. And I think the coaching staff is probably trying to pull it out of him because you have to have him on the court because of his offensive ability and his shooting. And so I think you saw, obviously from an offensive standpoint, what we saw last night was a lot better than we saw against Winthrop. I think we were 1 for 20 at 3-point from the 3-point land and on Sunday, and then to hit 12 last night and McKenzie leading the way. I thought it was nice to see, and then Luke had some as well. And Luke's always going to be with his experience and what his experience at Illinois and then coming to Indiana, kind of coming home. He's a guy that I think. To put on that jersey, I don't want to say it means more to him, but I think it certainly is something special for him, and it shows in the way he leads and the way he plays. You mentioned the way he stepped in front of the camera last night, but even when he's struggling, you still see that leadership out of him, and that he's that guy on the floor that's bringing everybody together, talking, and so it was nice to see kind of them both put it together a little bit more last night. Both were hitting shots, both seemed a little bit more engaged defensively. Certainly McKenzie did, and Luke was kind of his normal self. He struggled with Ace, but it wasn't for a lack of effort. So it was nice. It was what you kind of expect from those guys. And now you just need to see it kind of on a consistent basis to give Indiana a shot moving forward. Yeah,
and I think you knock on an interesting thing there too, because I think in the past one of the arguments I've had with IU is not being as vocal and not having that kind of leader and someone to speak up, because we even struggled with that big time last year. I would argue when Xavier Johnson was out, you had Galloway up there kind of leading the team, and that's not really Galloway to be vocally a leader. And I think you get that more out of the guys that may not contribute as far as offensively as much as some of the other guys, but they do with that leadership, and Goody's one of them. And you saw that in some of the videos during the huddles during Atlantis when things were down. Goody was still talking and getting going. You see that at Aleel when he's in there. He's gathering guys together, talking things through, getting things going as well. I think you get a little bit out of Rice and everything, just with his point guard mentality. But that's just kind of him leading to the standard of what a point guard should be and everything, not stepping beyond that. But other than that, you've got fairly quiet guys. So I think that's another thing you see out of Goody, and I like to see those situations. Looking at some numbers in this game, a lot of good positive ones to look at, not as many negatives as we had in the past. First one I want to point out is turnovers. Just 8 turnovers in this game, 7 of those coming in the second half. So obviously when the zone defense was giving IU some fits, some led to a little bit of turnovers, but just what that means is that just 1 in the first half. So that was great to see. Obviously, the lid coming off the basket from 3 was another good story in this game. 12 for 27 from 3. Just had the right guys taking them, the right guys taking the right amount, took them at the right time. Didn't feel like, as it was, at least in the Winthrop game, where guys weren't hucking them at the basket just to do it. They weren't coming too early in the shot clock. Guys were choosing the times to take them. And then obviously the other big thing and big contributor to the win was those 18 offensive rebounds for IU that led to 34 second chance points for IU. Just great to see. Any thoughts on those numbers or any other numbers that stand out to you in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned the 38, IU rebounding 38% of their misses, which led to 34 second chance points, 11 more shot attempts in Rutgers, 72 to 61, which is huge. That's IU's often had a hard time rebounding, specifically on the offensive end. So that was nice to see. You heard Robbie Hummel kind of talk about that was a big opportunity area for IU going into the game, and they really took advantage of it with their size. I think we'd be remiss not to mention, and we don't generally talk about stats from the opponent, but I mean, Ace Bailey is a special talent, man. He had half of Rutgers points, 39 points. I mean, that's a freshman. That is that kind of talent doesn't walk through the door very often at the collegiate level, and obviously, thank God, he's only going to be there for a year, at least I hope. But watching what he did, I mean, scoring half your team's points as a freshman, putting up almost 40 points in Assembly Hall, that's pretty special stuff. So I thought that was obviously, specifically because we won, that was pretty cool to see a performance like that, and even heard Woody talk about him after the game. So that certainly stuck out to me as well. Yeah, that's really about it. I thought the rebounding and the 3-point shooting was, obviously, we touched on that, was much better, and just what we were able to do in terms of getting second chance points and getting that many more field goal attempts at Rutgers, I really think was the difference in the game.
Yeah. Another stat I just noticed with it too, a little bit towards the negative. IU was 8 for 24 on layups. I think that kind of led to a lot of those second chance points, quick little putbacks from them. There were some fast break moments that looked a little sketchy with what IU was trying to do, easily trying to put it in. Just kind of rolled weird for him maybe in that. But speaking on Ace Bailey, if he is back at Rutgers next year, there's something wrong with that kid. Shake him, because he's got, obviously he's making plenty of money right now, but he's going to be a multimillionaire next year. He's going to go high in the draft. If we didn't have Cooper Flagg that's drawing a lot of the attention from national media, all of it would be over at Ace in this kind of game. It's going to be really kind of, he'll be in the top 5 as far as the draft this year. So like you said, great to see, cool to be able to watch. And those that got to see it in person, I've seen a lot of notes. It's just ridiculous what he can make. jumping off that 1 foot and everything, making those circus shots. And like I said, IU did, I think, the best that they could against him, and what you hope, coming with the double in some situations against him, and Leal forcing him on his offhand, and just made those ridiculous shots. That inbound play that they like to run, where he gets 2 screens and then shoots it falling out of bounds, and he hit 2 of those. Again, tip the cap, move on. IU handled that well, dealing with that situation and what he was going to do and get his, but make them hard. And IU did, and he made them. So great for him. We'll move on from that. I think any other stats, not necessarily to look at moving forward, but we've got a road game coming up. But there are some more home games coming after that. And if you are unable to go to those home games, or if you find yourselves wanting to nominate someone to go to a game that can't maybe make themselves financially the ability to buy tickets and go to them, what can people do for those situations, Martha?
Yeah, it's obviously the Hoosier Ticket Project would love to rehome your tickets if you can't use them. We had a couple. I was fortunate enough to go down to the Winthrop game, and we had a couple attendees there, both in wheelchairs. One group from the nursing home that 85-year-old lady that was able to attend her first game with her roommate, and her nurse was able to take her. They were able to sit up behind the basket. We had another young man that was there that he ended up getting a hip replacement this week. He had an incident with his hip that kind of ate away at the ball joint in his hip, and he couldn't walk. And for an 11-year-old to be in a wheelchair over the holidays, just kind of a miserable kind of time for that young man. But he was able to attend his first IU game and get him down to the court after the game. So it was pretty cool to see. And those are just a couple of many similar stories like that. And obviously a lot of people that can't, don't have the means or the ability to get to games. So if you find yourself with tickets that you can't use, visit our website, HoosierTicketProject.org/donate. And you can donate your tickets, donate financially. If you've got somebody that could benefit from our program, you can make a request at the same website. So very, very thankful for everybody that did. We're seeing record numbers of donations for both men's and women's basketball. So extremely grateful, extremely thankful for everybody that has donated. And I think we can continue to send a lot of people to the remaining home games. So appreciate it, Chad.
Yeah. And as you said, too, if they get an influx of tickets, if you know someone that is really deserving of that situation, you can also go on to HoosierTicketProject.org and nominate someone to receive those tickets and get to experience that once in a lifetime situation. We take for granted those of us that are able to go to games, sit in good seats and enjoy this team, but there's lots of those out there that aren't as fortunate. So great to have this moment, great to have this operation with IU helping out Hoosiers helping Hoosiers. Just a great thing to have. Go ahead and give me your kind of closing thoughts, button up this game as far as your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's a game that Indiana had to have. Full stop. I think it was one that when you found out, we talked about it, Dylan Harper being out, it was one that Indiana should, I don't want to say with relative ease, nothing seems to come with relative ease anymore. But it was one that I think for the first time in a little while, I never, especially after you got over that first half, first half was kind of weird. It was, Ace Bailey was, couldn't miss. But Indiana, they were able, water kind of found its level, and Indiana kind of gained control going into the half. And really, you never felt like the game was necessarily in question. It wasn't that feeling like you're getting a tooth pulled type, viewing experience that Indiana basketball has been at times. So it felt a little better, right? It felt a little smoother. It felt a little easier, and hopefully that helps IU build some confidence. Because like I said, it was an absolute must win for Indiana. It's hard to say there's must wins in early January, but for Indiana, it was. There's really no room for error, and they were able to go out, win by 10 points, and hopefully, lay some confidence for going into what's probably going to be a pretty wild environment. Sunday in Philadelphia at the Palestra against Penn State, a team that's had Indiana's number. So it's another opportunity for Indiana to go out and prove something, and hopefully they do, because they need some good road wins.
Yep. I think overall a very balanced contribution across the board. Obviously, barring a few guys from the bench, but points well spread out amongst guys doing what they should do, stepping up moments from others. But like we've said in this show, just a step in the right direction, and a step that IU and this team needs, especially to start a conference schedule that's a very interesting conference this year. One that is going to have some upsets, ones that is not going to have very many given games or easy games. It's a very interesting Big Ten this year, basketball-wise, that is going to see some major ups and downs. And IU's got a gauntlet of games that it's got to go through. So a step in the right direction. And this is where we definitely learned a lot of things about this team moving forward and how things can go. This is a repeatable type of performance for IU. So we hope that we see this again. We hope they continue to do this. But again, the momentum is swinging in the right way. It could have been very dramatic to the other way. If you think back to how we felt just in this past month, just in December, with the ups and downs, the roller coaster of inconsistency that this team is, we at least saw a little bit of consistency in this one, and closer to a full game out of this team, and contributions, like I said, across the board, and the leader stepped up that needed to lead, and things happen in the positive. So we'll be hopeful. I will finish with saying my usual word, the H word, the hope. The hope is still alive for this IU team, and we can move forward and feel confident at least a little more when turning that TV on to the Big Ten at noon against Penn State on Sunday. So we will see what that brings, but that will do it for this episode of Hoosier Morning After. Thank you for being with us. Thank you to Martha for being with me as always. Follow me on Twitter at General Chadwick. There you can find out more information about the show, when we're going to go live, and all those links. Follow Martha at The Mop Lady, and you can find out more information there as well. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Those of you on Twitter, share this with your friends and everything. Those of you listening on the podcast streams, thank you as well for being with us. We'll be back again the morning after the next game. Until then, guys, go out there, have yourselves a wonderful day, and let's go Hoosiers.